Hello everyone, this is Jason from Primetime Aquatics, and in this video I wanted to share with you a really cool fish, and it's in this tank right here, and right now it's hard to see because it's so small. But we're going to show you a great fish for a nano tank. Hope you enjoyed the video. Appreciate you being here. So this is a 20-gallon long that houses some really cool fish, the Exclamation Point Rasbora. As you can see here, they're not very large, and they're actually in here with some other fish, and we'll get into that in a moment. But these are fantastic fish because they stay small, because you can put them in smaller tanks and you can keep them in larger groups. This can be a really nice option for those of you who are looking for that larger group of fish but don't have a really large tank. Now, these fish are from Southeast Asia. The water there is usually around neutral to slightly acidic. It really depends on the specific region. The water there is also on the softer side, but you'll find in an aquarium they are a little bit more tolerant of a wide variety of water parameters. By the way, if you're looking for these fish and you can't find them locally, check out flipaquatics.com. They are a channel sponsor. This is where we got the fish from. Pretty much all the inhabitants in this tank came from Flip Aquatics, so check them out. I will put their information down in the description below. I think what attracts people to these fish are their size. They max out at about an inch. Females get a little bit larger than the males. The males tend to get a little bit of an orange color to them, and they look really, really nice, as you can see throughout this video. So you're dealing with a smaller fish that's also very peaceful. Now, on the downside, they can sometimes be a little bit shy, and so it might require some other types of more outgoing fish to bring them out of their shell a little bit. One of the ways to get around them being so shy is to keep them in relatively large groups. Absolute minimum you'd probably want is at least 6. We have at least 10 in this tank, but if you can get between 10 to 15, that's when they're going to show their best personality and really come out and be a little bit more visible. These fish will live about 3 to 4 years or so. Some people have reported keeping them around a little bit longer. When it comes to tank mates, you have some options. We've listed a lot of them in the description below. If you want more information on tank mates that we mentioned here, check out that description. Now, you are limited because of the size of these fish. Again, they're going to max out at maybe an inch, and the males are probably going to be even smaller. And as we know, any fish that can fit another fish in its mouth will become fish food. So we want to stay on the smaller side. So I would say if you're going to match them up with tetras, you're probably not going to want to have a tetra any larger than maybe like your standard neons. So your neons, your cardinals, black neons, green neons, those are all potential options. Ember tetras might be good. Gold tetras might work. Other small rasboras in this tank, we have dwarf emerald rasboras in here. I believe we've got a couple chili rasboras swimming around. We have some shrimp, as you can see here. So this is a nice fish if you want to add some shrimp to your tank. These fish, generally speaking, are too small to do any damage to adult shrimp. Could they potentially pick off some really tiny shrimplets? Possibly, but our shrimp colonies have been thriving in this tank along with these fish. So Neocaridina shrimp work. Other types of fish, maybe odos, cory cats. We do have a bristlenose pleco in here that's worked out fine. Mystery snails will work. You could also look at something like cherry barbs if you're looking for a centerpiece fish, maybe something like a small honey gourami. That could work. The Florida least killifish would be an option as well. Again, if you want more information, check out the description. We have a lot more care videos there. A lot of people ask if you can keep the Exclamation Point Rasbora with a betta. That can be hit or miss. The betta could be a little bit too aggressive for them. Also, sometimes the Exclamation Point Rasboras, when they're first purchased, they can breed pretty small, which could wind up being fish food for your betta. So you'd want to proceed with the Exclamation Point Rasbora betta combination with a little bit of caution. The water parameters for your Exclamation Point Rasbora, usually they're going to do relatively well, somewhere between 73 and 80 degrees. We've been keeping ours around 78 to 80, and they've been doing well there. Again, the pH in nature is usually 7 or slightly less. These fish will do well anywhere from around 6 to 6.5 on the low side up to about 8. Our pH in our fish room is right around an 8, and they've been doing okay there. Water hardness, they're relatively tolerant of water hardness, somewhere around 5 to 12 degrees on your GH, and your KH should work out just fine. We're on the upper end for both of those, right around 10 degrees for our general hardness and 10 degrees for our carbonate hardness. I will say you want a well-cycled tank. No ammonia, no nitrite. We try to keep our nitrates at 20 parts per million or less. Sometimes it creeps a little bit north of that when we have a planted tank like you see here, but usually not more than 30 parts per million. Again, our goal, generally speaking, is 20 parts per million. Now, tank size, if you look on the internet, it's going to be all over the place. I've seen recommendations from 5 gallons up to 20 gallons. Again, what we're looking at here is a 20 long. I like this size tank for these fish. Now, they are small. You can certainly go 10 gallons with these fish. And in fact, if you've got a tank that's around 10 gallons to 20, that's probably going to be a pretty good size, because if you go really, really large, let's say a 4-foot tank, these fish are so tiny that sometimes they can actually be hard to find in a larger tank. So even with this 20-gallon long, the fact that we have so many of them makes it a little bit easier to find them. But certainly a 10-gallon that would allow you to keep that roughly 8 to 15 or so, that would allow these fish to thrive. They're not overly active. You can see they're certainly swimming around, but they don't have nearly as much swimming energy as, let's say, like your Danios or Endlers or Guppies, where they're constantly in motion and swimming around the tank all crazy like. That's not generally what these fish do. So anything 10 gallons and above should work out just fine. We feed these fish North Fin community flakes. Sometimes we give them the kelp flakes. They even sometimes get the cichlid fake flakes, and we kind of crush that up just because they are so small. If you want to see them get really excited, give them live baby brine shrimp, and they will absolutely love that as well. So we're feeding a mix of flake food and live baby brine. If you had micro pellets, that could work too. We fed them North Fin micro pellets in the past, and they seem to enjoy that. Tank setup for your Rasboras is pretty straightforward. They do like plants, they do like places to kind of hang out, and we've got plenty of live plants here. Do they have to be live? Of course not. You can use fake plants as well, but that offers them a little bit of security. Substrate really doesn't matter whether that's gravel or sand. They don't interact with it, so pick your favorite there. I will say when it comes to the substrate color, we generally go darker. And we have a dark substrate in this particular tank as well as a black background, and that's helping these fish feel secure, and they're really showing their best color with that darker substrate and darker background. We have one sponge filter running in this tank, and we also have a Hygger 30-inch light that's illuminating the tank, and it's doing well with the plants. So that's generally how we set everything up. You can add driftwood, you can add rocks. Just make sure that the rocks and the driftwood that you're adding aren't going to alter the water chemistry of your tank too drastically. Now, when it comes to breeding these fish, for the most part, it's not an easy task because they are so small. They are egg scatterers. Generally what happens if you want to breed them, you're going to get a group. Most likely feed them lots of live baby brine shrimp. That's going to condition the adults to want to spawn. They're going to spawn frequently, and they're going to scatter the eggs all over the tank. Usually those eggs are going to get caught up in maybe a spawning mop if you have one of those, or some Java moss. You remove the spawning mop and the Java moss, put that in a different tank that's been cycled. The eggs will usually hatch in a couple of days. The fish are going to be extraordinarily tiny, and therefore they're going to be too small to even take live baby brine, which means you're going to need some type of infusoria or some pulverized flake food. If you leave the adults in the tank, they will usually prey on the babies, and so we want to make sure we separate them. But this is a fantastic fish. It is well worth your time and effort if you can find them. Again, if you can't find them locally, check out flipaquatics.com. Our fish came in healthy. They're looking great. They're the ones that you're seeing in the video. If you want more information on some of the tank mates, check out these videos in the upper and lower right-hand corner as well as in the description below. Appreciate you being here, and we'll see you in the next one.